This episode is sponsored by FusionAuth.
So your company's sending you to reInvent. Congratulations and my condolences. There are a plethora of... Pro tip, bring earplugs. As I was saying, there are a plethora of smarmy guides that you can read or watch telling you how to do reInvent the right way. They get approximately 3 things right. 1 is wear comfortable shoes. 2 is to drink plenty of water. And 3 is to apply chapstick regularly and liberally. You're in a freaking desert after all. Almost everything else you hear about how to do reInvent properly is a heap of molten, festering garbage. So instead, I'm gonna give you the tips I give my friends who wonder just what they're in for at their first reInvent. And I'm gonna break them down into 3 categories. The first is tips for Las Vegas. The second is tips for the conference itself. And the third is tips on the nightlife. Let's start with the very obvious. reInvent is hosted in Las Vegas. In an unfortunately on-the-nose coincidence for AWS, Las Vegas is a city built almost entirely upon exploiting people. Now, that might strike you as a throwaway joke about data egress prices, but I assure you that it's not. All of the reInvent venues double as casinos. If this is your first time in Las Vegas, picture the hotel and casino layouts as being trapped inside of an AWS managed NAT gateway. Everything around you is extremely expensive, and it's borderline impossible to figure out where the entrances and exits are. This is by design. Are you sure you don't want to sit down for a few minutes at a slot machine to rest and incidentally put a few bucks into it?
And now it's time for Corey Quinn's Cloud Economist Hot Tip.
Cloud economics hot tip. Let me assure you, you absolutely do not want to put money into slot machines.
That's been Corey Quinn's Cloud Economist Hot Tip.
Casinos make their money when you're out on the gaming floors, not when you're holed up in your room streaming Netflix. Therefore, Wi-Fi access is usually tiered at levels that round to expensive and extremely expensive. Buying the lower tier is a mistake that I won't make again. Spring for the good Wi-Fi if you're planning to spend any appreciable time in your room. And I do suggest you spend time in your room, because otherwise you will probably die of exhaustion. On that note, if your employer has you sharing a room with a coworker, it's time for you to find a new job, because that company is likely going to be a smoking crater by the time the HR lawsuits are finished. Now, you should stay at one of the reInvent venues, because the Las Vegas Strip is a lot bigger than it seems. If you look at the venue map, you'll find that it's roughly as accurate as your company's architecture diagrams of your AWS environment. Easy example, the Venetian Expo Hall is across the street from the Wynn, where I stayed last year. One might think that I could schedule meetings 15 minutes apart and get there with time to spare. I thought that the joke was on me. I walk fairly quickly, and when I didn't get stopped to talk to anyone, my best time from the Expo Hall entrance to my hotel room was just under 25 minutes. Built-in time. So what should you actually do at reInvent? One year, I tried to attend all of the keynotes, just the keynotes, and I nearly collapsed. There were 5 of them. Instead of trying to do everything, which is impossible, pick and choose what value you want to get from the show and optimize your schedule for that. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of waiting in line for 45 minutes to attend a breakout session that will soon be up on YouTube. That's why I bias for Chalk Talks, which aren't recorded and often include really interesting pearls of wisdom from the experts. While you're planning out your schedule, you should remember that AWS's service announcements and keynotes, they're both marketing events. You don't have to go to all of them, I promise. In fact, I have two primary pieces of advice around those announcements. One, while every service is for someone, no service is for everyone. I'll put together a roundup of AWS announcements, but even that is only going to be a summary. It's absolutely not your shopping list. And two, really think about what you want to get out of the show. For me, it's about making connections with people. With that as my guide, I can better consider my opportunities and what I say yes to. For example, if I go to a talk about S3, the eighth wonder of the world, I'll learn a fair bit about the service, sure. However, if I get to know someone on the S3 team, well, that's the kind of person I can ask questions to in 3 months when I'm back home and using S3 as a haunted database. Speaking of people who want to answer all of your questions, let's talk about the vendors. The Expo Hall or Partner Education Center is overwhelming. There are hundreds of hugely expensive booths there. The leads that these companies gather at reInvent are going to feed their entire Q1 2023 sales pipeline. Do yourself a favor right now. Log into the attendee portal and change your email address to include a + followed by reInvent 2022. I will wait. No, seriously, I'm waiting. Go do it right now. Okay, great. Now that that's taken care of, trust me, you're going to thank me later. You see, vendors will periodically scan your badge and email you as a result. Now, this isn't a bad thing at all, because that's how business works. But it is going to result in a deluge of emails that can make your inbox completely unusable if you don't have a filter. You give vendors a tagged email address so you can filter those messages into a folder until you have time to go through them on your terms, not theirs. Speaking of vendors, while you're walking around the enormous expo hall, really consider your swag options. I generally tend to ignore most of them. Yes, stickers are fun and all, sure, but I don't really need that many t-shirts, pairs of socks, incredibly sketchy branded USB batteries carefully positioned to destroy my phone and burn my house down, or plastic lightsabers. Try to retain a sense of what your time is worth before you spend 45 minutes standing in line to spin a wheel for a chance to win an off-brand drone that cost $15. Of course, the generous companies who sponsor my Quinnvent snark and insights are absolutely amazing. You should definitely make it a point to tell them that you heard about them from me. Every application needs authentication, presumably. But just like deciding to buy a car rather than create your own, there are some things where it's safer not to build it yourself from spare parts. Auth is one of them. In fact, I dare say that doing that with Auth would be awful. FusionAuth is authentication built for developers by developers. They know how to put developers in the driver's seat, but also how to keep them out of the pilot's seat because everyone flying their own helicopter is both insane and terrifying. What's cool about FusionAuth is that you can host it yourself anywhere you want, or if you're not into that, they will host it for you in a private, dedicated instance in the cloud instead of a shared service. They have a free version that has no limit on volume, and thousands of applications depend on it today. They know Auth, they're not zeros, if you know what I'm putting down. So before you build it or get stuck with an expensive alternative, check them out at snark.cloud/fusion. Check them out at snark.cloud/FusionAuth. They're not awful. This brings us to the nightlife. As we've already established, this is Las Vegas. There's a pub crawl on Tuesday night that's a buyout of a whole bunch of restaurants and bars, each one sponsored by a different company. Let's face it, as far as name AWS and their partners' vision of an idealized, perfect customer, you're not going to be too far from it if you were to say a bunch of completely smashed engineers who also have signing authority. So for their purposes, this is kind of ideal. But you probably don't want to make the mistake of drinking so much that you can't function the following day. If you're the type of person who enjoys music that goes doof, 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 electronic dance music, doof, I'm assuming, doof, electronic dance music, doof, then the replay party is absolutely not to be missed. Bring your badge or they will not let you in. Do not bring a bag longer than a small purse or they will not let you in. Do not pretend to be with the band or they will not let you in. Do not attempt a "don't you know who I am? I'm Corey Quinn," or they will absolutely not let you in. But I have saved the crowning jewel of reInvent for last, because all of the neat stuff you're going to see pales in comparison to the very best part: going home. That's right, reInvent is in fact one of the only AWS services you don't get charged to leave. When you've had enough, just go on home. Relax, pamper yourself, take a bubble bath. Me, on the other hand, I'm gonna be there for 8 nights this year in some completely psychotic version of Cloud Hanukkah. I hope that you don't have to go, but if you do, I hope to see you there. If you're lucky enough to still be at home and not in Las Vegas, you can follow along at requinnvent.com. I'll talk to you soon. All in on red.
Yeah, it's Adam. Listen, we need to raise the price on that new machine learning service we're launching at reInvent by a lot. I mean a lot. More than that. Add for the new pricing conventions, I don't care. I'm not the doctor, Matt.